boy, and she bounces back hard. I'm back, hippy chippy. Today, we're talking about the emotion of belonging. And I'll share a story later. Probably this is exactly where I am in my personal evolution, in my emotional makeup, that I'm reevaluating my own attachment styles and redesigning a version of myself who has a very different relationship with belonging, a very different sense of belonging. All right, don't try this at home. The reversal of belonging is self-annihilation. My first day on a proper film set. The assistant director finds my name on an endless list and hands me a walkie-talkie. Go get some breakfast, the minibus is leaving in 20, we'll meet by the back entrance. No idea where any of those things are. This is a pop-up village operating like a military base with hundreds of seasoned and jaded folks going about their business as usual. It wasn't hundreds, but it felt like hundreds. Probably it was 20. Everyone seems to know what they're doing. 15 shivering minutes later, I emerge from the toilet cubicle. There's nowhere to hide here. People are yelling military lingo in my ear, and my walkie keeps falling off every few seconds. Total deer in the headlights. I was stupid to think that filmmaking is for me. I don't know anything about anything. I don't even know how to ask for help. I don't have a voice. I live in my fantasies. I don't understand how to live in the real world. Can I just please go home now and give up on ever leaving the house again? Oh boy. I brought this story because it's a very clear-cut example of she was just new on set. She didn't know what she was doing. But I have a very similar sense just in general in day-to-day life that I don't really listen to the same music. I don't really eat the same food. I don't really enjoy the same things. I don't really do the same stuff that people seem to be enjoying and people seem to be engaged with. And so a lot of times I felt like that I just don't belong. And psychology calls it attachment styles. The word attachment itself is a tricksy one. It comes down to your sense of relationships, your relationship to relationships. Do you believe wholeheartedly, do you feel in every single relationship that you are just as safe to give love as to receive love? Or you have a reservation and a preference towards each way? When we feel like we're either too much or not enough and to hide our fears, or trying to play them off as we don't feel them and we just act incredibly nonchalant. Those are all coming in under the same category of non-secure attachment styles. And whatever you try to categorize them, the basic difference is whether you are comfortable with the active action of feeling love, giving love, receiving love, or you are reserved, you're suppressing yourself. Hello, gorgeous. We meet every night now. Or you're repressed and you don't feel comfortable having a mutual back and forth relationship. Not just romantic, all sorts. This was a work situation, and I still did not feel like I'm wanted, needed, or that I have anything to contribute. I felt like I'm not good enough. And that's my default. My default goes with, I'm very scared that I'm not enough. And I try to hide it, mask it. I'm not the clingy one, I'm the nonchalant one. And when I do flip and decide to give love and decide to give myself, I don't have a good, healthy practice of how to do that. So I'm very scared. I flip to the other side. I'm very scared that I'm too much. And I'm just navigating these waters now when I'm practicing. How does that feel if I would be completely safe and secure, both giving and receiving love? I have a very good friend who's he's incredibly proud of being ridiculously critical and judgmental. It comes with the microcosmos that he's surrounding himself with, the culture that he is upkeeping, because it's not something that he enjoys, but he definitely actively upkeeps it. And we've been friends for ever. And very infrequently, probably 2 times a year on his birthday and my birthday, we exchange messages, quite a long message. And for about 6 or 7 years now, every single message has a very similar tonality, that he feels like he is just not capable of feeling anymore. He is completely detached from anything and everything. He doesn't really care about anything. Nothing really brings him joy. And he doesn't feel like that he belongs anywhere. It doesn't matter what he does, just doesn't do it for him. And he seems to have given up on either himself or the situation so much that he settles into this character, this role that he has assigned for himself. It's not like that he has to. If you were to look at his life from the outside, he's not struggling, he's not suffering, he's surrounded by people. It's the internal reality that he is experiencing. And based on his own accounts, his own emails, he seems to have stagnated at the point that this is just how it's going to go down. He's younger than I am. And for the past 6-7 years, he's just like, yeah, well, this is just going to be me for the rest of this life. Attachment styles, or your relationship to relationships, is not a fixed thing. It's not something that you're cursed with. It's not something that you have to live with for the rest of your life. But the sheer awareness of it, because his accounts are incredibly accurate and detailed. He sees what he's doing. He sees his own shortcomings. It's not like that he is oblivious about it and he plays the victim and he doesn't know why things are happening and what's happening to him. He is full on aware of everything that he is doing and not doing, feeling and not feeling. And he can describe it in incredibly eloquent ways. But he just doesn't seem to want to change it, even though he is experiencing internal struggle. So the sheer awareness of it, the sheer mindfulness of it is not enough. If you do feel like that you're lacking a sense of belonging, if you do feel lonely, if you felt like that you enter every room with a fear of, am I being judged? Am I being distracted? Am I being judged? Do I even belong there? Does anybody want me here? Does anybody even notice that I'm here? Does it really matter whether I'm here or not? Does it make a difference whether I'm here or not? And I've been dealing with those emotions in the past couple of days, very interestingly. So if you have those feelings in you, they might not be active right now in your system, but if you know that just at a moment's notice, you still can access those emotions, you can still be triggered by something. Triggered is such a stupid word. You can still be triggered by something that immediately makes you feel incredibly insecure and does not, you don't feel safe to connect, you don't feel safe to give love or receive love. then it takes an active practice to put yourself in the emotional state of what would that feel like if the pain, fear, sadness, anger would evaporate or somehow just evolve and grow into something more, something different. A lot of trauma healing and trauma counseling does all sorts of, including shadow work. That's why I'm naming things the way I'm naming them, because I disagree with the way we do shadow work. They indulge in the trauma. Hell, I love you too. I'm back. Look at this. This is up to speed again. And when we go into traumatic situations, when we sink into bad memories, horrible feelings, fears, anxiety, misplacement, without the tools of expanding ourselves out of it, then we can so easily and so uselessly re-traumatize ourselves that it would have been better if we wouldn't just feel anything. That's how depression happens. So, if you still have any of these feelings active or dormant in your system, genuinely, honestly, sense, I don't use the word imagine, sense, however that comes across for you. What would that feel like if in a parallel universe, in a parallel existence, you, just the way you are, with the circumstances that you have, with the past that you have, with the relationships that you now have or had in the past, you would feel absolutely safe to give love and to receive love? How would that feel? What would you do differently? How would you speak differently? How would you feel differently? How would you think differently? And play around with that difference so that you have a practice. Because probably you had decades of practice of feeling very unsafe when you had to relate. Could be strangers, could be your partner, could be your child, your parent. When we biochemically and physically have a practice of immediately experiencing a surge of stress hormones when we are close with others, then it does take a bit of practice to physically teach your body that it can react differently immediately, so that you don't need to have a spike of cortisol, adrenaline, but you can start with the bonding hormones, oxytocin, serotonin. Don't try dopamine, that's a killer. Just sense. Give yourself enough time, find a safe space, do it just before you go to bed, just after you wake up, just a few minutes. Pick a moment, work with a memory or work with a feeling that you feel really uncomfortable around, and just allow yourself to set yourself free from the habitual behaviors, the habitual feelings, and instead of that, what would you do? How would you be if you would feel safe to give and receive exactly what you want? That's where the feeling of belonging is coming from. All right. These are the things that we're going to do in Ultimate Desire and so much more. Somebody asked me that what are we actually going to do? So very briefly, I would love to create a group of people who can energetically train themselves to hold space for others who do not wish to do the hard work. This early bird group is going to be the group of people, should you wish, who are going to bioenergetically, biochemically, biophysically train ourselves to show up regularly in situations. I insist on some kind of physical training as well, some kind of dance, stretching, movement, something. But if your talent is in singing, painting, writing code and applications, doing emotional release techniques, leading meditations, sound journeys, anything that you can come up with that you can contribute to the group, that we can have a semi-regular practice of coming together and practicing. Again, practicing what it feels like to be human in a setting where you just get to be somewhat very different and somehow more of yourself than in the supposedly outside world. And I would like to open that space up for people who have nothing to do with Keylontic Science, people who have nothing to do with emotional work, people who don't even want to do the emotional work necessarily, but would love to find community, would love to find peace, would love to find a safe space where they just get to be whoever they are. So that's the base idea, that the few committed ones would go through a more personal training in terms of if you have a special skill or a special talent, then let's work with that and around that, and let's design a format together, how we can come together for ourselves so that we have a practice and a habit of emotional well-being. It's the same way as if you don't train your muscles, you don't have muscles. you have meat surrounded by fat on bones. Those are not categorically muscles. You do need to work emotional muscles just as much as physical muscles. And unless I'm looking forward to this, me too, so much. And unless we relearn how to be human, we reteach ourselves how to connect without conflict, how to engage without fear, how to express without shame, or through the fear, the shame, the pain, all that, then I do genuinely believe that the rest of this existence here is going to be at least a little bit more tolerable, bearable, fun, exciting, and we can all sense physically, palpably emotions such as belonging. All right, can't wait to contribute literally every ounce of my being to this. Yes! You know why? I still feel, physically, I feel so fucking lonely. It's ridiculous. I know that I'm surrounded by people. I know that they're somewhere out there in the universe because we meet online. But even when, with the beings that I'm close to, I just feel like I have this wall of separation, this disconnection. And I do understand why. We're just, I'm choosing people based on my emotional makeup, my resonance. And I'm literally coupling up with people who are bringing out all my fears, all my insecurities, because I didn't have a practice of clearing up my own emotional state so that I wouldn't match with the ones that are still instigating conflict. When our bodies, our biology is still holding on to trauma, then we're looking for conflict resolution. A healthy example of conflict resolution, we are just recreating the patterns that we are re-engaging with the same attachment style, and we're carrying on the same relationship to relationships. My friend keeps leaning into it that he is just completely apathetic. It's fascinating to listen to him. And you don't have to get stuck in the old ways, but it does take practice, and it's a lot easier to do it in community. Same, right? It can get incredibly lonely. It can get very isolating. And now that I'm, it was, at first it was a real shock to the system that, whoa, I'm gonna go back to London, because I technically had a nervous breakdown when I left London, and I was living an incredibly unhealthy lifestyle, both physically and emotionally, mentally. And I did not want to go back to it. I did not want to fall back to it. So I'm devising ways of how to have a much healthier emotional practice. And I do believe that it's a lot easier to do it together. So let's do it together. I love you so much. See you tomorrow on Instagram.